What's going on, everybody? This is another episode of the Kyle Hartman Project. We have episode 12, and we are releasing on Veterans Day, November 11th. So this, as a lot of you that follow me and know I am a veteran myself. And so Veterans Day, this is a big day for me. This is a very important day for me. I also brought a veteran friend of mine as the guest of this show, who also runs, he founded a veteran nonprofit that helps certain veterans out there. So we wanted to talk on the show today. We want to bring out our messages to everybody, especially the veteran community today. So I want to introduce my friend Tom Woods. I met this guy online, just as I've met a lot of my guests on the show. Fortunately enough, Tom is actually from California, or he's in California now, so I was able to actually get to meet Tom. And I wanted to let him talk a lot about what he's done so far and what he's doing with his nonprofit to help veterans. So, Tom, I want to thank you so much for taking the time to be on my show. I know that you are just a very, very busy guy right now, so you coming on my show means the world to me. And I want to let everybody know what you're doing, because I think it's something that is incredible, first of all. But I also think that it could help so many people. So if you could, Tom, I'd love to hear, tell everybody what you do. Let's hear about the organization that you started, and then we'll go from there.
Excellent. Yeah, thanks for having me, Kyle. We recently started up, just in the past year, really, a organization. It's a nonprofit 501c3 known as Warriors on Track. Warriors on Track essentially came about from my own personal experience between two different careers. So prior to the military, my dad and I were pretty heavy into auto racing. Did a lot of open wheel formula car type racing in my 20s. And, as things kind of progressed in the motorsports industry, I got really kind of jaded and tired of chasing sponsorship dollars down, really. And so the driving, it kind of lost its fun and its flair, and I needed to make a change. So I actually joined the military pretty late. I turned 30 in basic training in 2005. And when I returned home in 2012, after a couple of tours of combat in Iraq, I went through some pretty rough times with PTSD and trying to figure out how to just become a productive member of society once again. And I'll tell you, from 2012 when I got out till 2014 when I found a couple treatment modalities that worked for me, I was miserable. I was the kind of vet that wanted to just stay home and drink and isolate, and had no desire to be a productive member of society. And as I found treatments that were non-pharmaceutical, that's my big thing with Warriors on Track, is non-pharmaceutical, non-invasive, safe treatments that get vets healing from PTSD and TBI. And so that's where Warriors on Track started, and it's kind of a combination. We'll get more into detail, but it's a combination of motorsports and veterans getting together to do healing from PTSD and combat experience. And then on top of that, we wrap it up with a piece that basically gets vets back into the workforce as well.
Awesome. That sounds wonderful. I knew a lot of that going into this, so I'm really glad that we got to let everyone else hear a lot of what it's about. It's really cool. One other thing that we had in common, besides just being vets, and one other thing too, you're an Army vet, or what branch were you in?
Yeah, I was Army. I joined at a combat MOS, what they call a cavalry scout. So
Okay.
We essentially do recon type stuff.
Got you. Yeah, I was actually in 3-7 Cav at Fort Stewart. I was actually one of the supply personnel in charge of disbanding that whole entire brigade.
Nice.
I have my silver spurs.
Perfect.
So you were in the Army. I was in the Army, so a lot of our commonalities run there. But you also said you grew up in the racing world, and I started out. That was my first passion in life, was racing. I got to do a little bit of dirt track racing with my dad as well. And so one thing I can agree on is the fact that coming up with racing as a hobby, in a middle class household, is very, very hard, because, like you said, most everyone else has very, very top dollar equipment because of the sponsorship. So we actually had to get out of it for the same reason.
Exactly.
And so coming from a veteran standpoint, and B, somebody that enjoys auto racing, I was very excited at what you were able to culminate with putting the two together because I saw an opportunity where potentially I could be involved with a racing environment again, as well as I can help myself and I can help the others around me that are going through tough times with getting back into, like you said, just transitioning back into the civilian world. For a lot of people that have never served, it's hard to understand how tough that can really be for somebody.
Exactly. And, Warriors on Track is, I see a lot of organizations out there doing great things for vets, but most of them are what I call recreational therapy or experience-based, retreats and hunting and fishing and camping and those kind of things. And originally that's how Warriors on Track started out. We just wanted to take vets to the racetrack and let them experience being a pit crew on the race car. So this actually launched off last year when we ran I had a chance to drive once again after 10 years out of the seat. I ran the 25 hours of Thunder Hill last year, and I didn't really have the money to do it. So the guy who owned the car for the endurance race wanted 4 drivers, and he said, Tom, you could raise money by making this about PTSD awareness. So what we did last year is we flew 5 veterans that I served with in southern Baghdad during the surge in 2007. We reunited all those guys in 2016 at the track for that event.
Wow.
Yeah. And so everybody at the end of the event was like, hey, you know what, Tom, this is a great idea. We had 4 days of racing. We had a great time. The synergy between being a part of an auto racing team and being part of a military platoon, there wasn't much difference. There's teamwork and a mission set. Well, we got done with that race weekend last year and decided to go ahead and design the nonprofit. And one of the first things the board member said to me is, hey, you can't bring out a bunch of PTSD afflicted veterans, show them an adrenaline filled weekend for 3 or 4 days, and then just send them home. You need to build a nonprofit that offers healing and wellness within it as well, instead of just hanging out at the track. So what this is going to build to, Kyle, eventually is essentially a 4-week program. So I want to have the vets for next year. We're just going to start with Orange and LA County.
Okay.
Keep the costs down for travel, obviously, but there's a couple places in California that are on some cutting edge technology called, it's been known for years as transcranial magnetic stimulation, or TMS.
Okay.
So we want to start using that along with hyperbaric oxygen chambers to start treating the vets without using pharmaceuticals. And then while they're here for 4 weeks or so going through those treatment modalities, we also have 4 people on board with Warriors on Track to do 4 different modalities that I think are exceptional: meditation, yoga, art therapy, and paddleboarding. So while they're here getting healed up, utilizing all those different treatments, we will also allow the vets to go once or twice a week in that 4-week time over to True Speed Autosport, who has the race cars, and they, as a team, will train the veterans while they're getting treatment those weeks on how to be a professional pit crew guy and learn how to change tires in a hot pit lane and fuel the car and whatnot. And then hopefully at the end of the 4 weeks, we can take the vets to an actual race weekend once we feel like they've got enough healing under their belt, and let them participate as a team member on a race weekend.
Okay, so have you gotten a lot of stick from the fact that, like you said, you're throwing these guys back into a high-intensity situation, a high-intense environment, being, there in the hot pit stop, and like you said, you do have to monitor to make sure they are good to go for that. Is that your biggest challenge when it comes to, say, getting the funding for these treatments and things like that? Because, I've started down the path of working on a nonprofit as well recently, so I have a lot of questions for you, but I think this is one that I'm almost scared that for a lot of veteran nonprofit startups, this is almost the biggest challenge, is the fact that there's not a sure way to measure when someone's PTSD might hit them and get the best of them in a certain situation. So I don't know, I'm just curious, is that something that's very relevant for you guys? I mean, how do you tackle those kind of obstacles?
Right. So, the biggest hurdle I think I'm going to face, we're really using now till the spring of next year to do things like we're doing now, promoting, getting our name out there, getting donations to roll in. Already have a waiting list of veterans that need help. That's not an issue. Money is going to be an issue. So donors are a big deal. I think sometimes I know as of right now, one of our biggest hiccups is going to be that people were starting to learn, look at our website and they see the Porsche GT3 car on there. And I think some of their first assumptions is, oh, this is just an organization trying to raise money to go racing.
Right.
That's not the fact. None of the money that comes into our nonprofit is going to be used towards the racing. That's going to be donated by guys that own race cars, teams that are already established, and all the donor money will be used just for veteran wellness alone. Eventually, I hope to get a corporate sponsor that wants to help veterans and sees the feel-good story, and they fund the racing, and that way we don't have to worry about that side of it. When you mention how we track what's going on with the vets and PTSD, that's the second hurdle. So how do we actually show in a metric situation what's changing within the veteran? So what we tend to use at a treatment center that I currently work at in my normal full-time job, we use what the VA uses as well, and it's called the PCL5 checklist.
Okay.
So a veteran goes through the PCL5 checklist. I believe it's about 22 questions. I'd ask you, from a scale of 0 to 4, what's affecting you in these different situations. And so it'd ask you about sleep and anxiety and depression and isolation and things like that. And if you're a vet that was anything like me back in 2012, my PCL5 score was like 63, I think, which is considered severe PTSD.
Okay.
What we're finding with especially TMS treatment, if a guy does that for 4 or 5 weeks, at our treatment center that we see a lot of PTSD afflicted vets, we're seeing number changes from guys that are in the 60s dropping down into the 20s and 30s on the scale of a PCL5. The VA, from what I understand, is ecstatic if they see a PCL5 score drop 3 or 4 points. That's like a big deal to them.
Okay, so you're making huge progress.
Yeah, we're talking 20, 30-point changes in PCL5s, and we're seeing wives and family members walk into this treatment center that does TMS saying, holy cow, you guys finally gave me my husband back. This is a therapy that's working. So, and again, all the therapies I mentioned are completely non-invasive, non-pharmaceutical, and that's really what I'm sticking to.
I think that is really awesome that you're showing people, I think, that it is possible to find alternative solutions rather than just getting all doped up and then, when you run out of your meds or something and then it's right back and then it's even worse because of half of the things that they got you on. So I think that, you have my full support in sticking to that. I think that, even if you ever get in a situation where maybe a big investor tells you that you need to start issuing pharmaceuticals, I think you should stick to your guns because you're going to find plenty of people that will support this route. And especially if you're showing these huge numbers too. I mean, there's no doubting the method then. So I'm glad I asked because I didn't know if there was an exact science to it. And I just learned that. So that's wonderful.
Yeah. There's something else that I kind of feel like all vets that are suffering from PTSD feel like they only have one option, and that's I can go to group counseling at the VA, and I can see my shrink at the VA, and I can get pharmaceuticals. And what we're really tired, my board and nonprofit as a whole, we're tired of seeing that basically that's the only answer. And I'm also tired of seeing vets be treated as, well, anybody with a mental health issue in society nowadays. What we're trying to do is, instead of looking at people as far as their behavior with a mental health issue like PTSD or depression or anxiety, instead of looking at the behavior of the individual, why are we not looking at the brain as an organ and what the issue is? So in other words, if I've got tachycardia, like a racing heart issue, I go to a cardiologist to get my heart looked at. Yet when we're having issues with PTSD and anxiety and depression and whatnot, we're going to a shrink and we're being looked at as a label and looked at as our behavior within society instead of looking at the brain as an organ and what the issue is.
And
you're going to see changes in that direction.
I can attest to that completely, and I'm so glad that you brought that up because I can't tell you how many of my close friends that are all veterans that are going through certain situations where they have to see a shrink and things like that. Just the difference in attitude, I would say, and just the fact that they feel so boxed in and helpless, like you said. So, man, I'm really, really glad you just touched on that, because I think that there's going to be a lot of ears, and there's going to definitely be a lot of veteran ears on this podcast. And I need everybody that listens to this to really understand, what Tom's putting out, because I can't agree anymore. And I love that you said that. So, but go ahead. I know I cut you off, so I'll let you finish on what you were saying.
No, that was pretty much it. But I can tell you, I'll hit on real quick my own experience with one particular visit to the psychologist at the Long Beach VA. So this was a guy that I'd been going for, visiting for probably a good 3 years after I got out. Mm-hmm. And finally one day I walked into the VA and I said, listen, I'm done with pharmaceuticals. I'm not playing that game anymore. So I'll tell you what, how about Dr. So-and-so, why don't we go a holistic route? I want to start doing things like getting out and paddleboarding or going to veterans events. And now I'm starting to get to a place where I feel more comfortable not using pharmaceuticals and psychotropics and trying to just pursue it from a holistic standpoint. Mm-hmm. And he actually looks at me from across the desk at the VA and says, well, why didn't you tell me that 3 years ago? We could have avoided pharmaceuticals altogether and gone a holistic route. And I'm thinking to myself, what? It's your job to tell me that that's an option.
Yeah, I mean, it's not for you to understand what could make you better off the top of your head. That's why you're there in the first place.
Yeah, so I think there needs to be just this paradigm shift within not just the VA, but veterans and non-veterans. We've got to get off this pharmaceutical route and start looking at ways to get guys back into society through other means, and that's exactly what Warriors on Track is trying to do.
I love it. I think that I'm seeing more. I think it's becoming more popular. I hope that that is the case, and I think I'm going to start looking a lot more closely into what organizations are out there trying to go this route, because I think I'm going to be in a position where I can help a lot of people one day. At least that's what I'm striving to be in a position to do. So I want to kind of bring in everybody, network with as many of the others as we can, and just kind of go from there. I think that we'll kind of create our own nonprofit powerhouse that just kind of houses our own, and takes everybody in that just somewhere along the way got left behind. We'll pick them back up, and we'll. I love the system that you have going, and I think it's really exciting to know that it's going to help a lot of people.
Absolutely, and for any of your vets that are listening to this podcast, I was the guy that was sitting behind closed blinds with a bottle of Jack, basically watching either Restrepo over and over again on on my DVD player, or playing Call of Duty, and no desire to get out of the house and do anything once getting out of the military. And at this point in my life, I'm trying to be an example that no matter how bad off you've got it as a vet that's struggling, there's somebody out there like myself that can completely relate to you and understands. I've been through it all when I got back, the legal problems, the behavioral problems, my family falling apart, just not being able to figure out where to find the help. And now that I figured it out, I got to pay it forward. So guys that need help can reach out to us, and they'll be talking to somebody like myself that's been there, done that, and can relate to what they're going through. And that's critical. There's not too many vets out there that want to just talk to a stranger or a civilian that's got no experience on the battlefield.
That's my goal too. I want to show everybody, I want to give everybody that place in life. I want them to feel as whole as they did while they were serving, because I've felt the potential of feeling that way. And like you said, I want to pay it forward and show everybody that's hurting or that's going through something that, we got them, and we'll get them through it until they figure out what it is that's going to make them whole again. So Tom,
Bingo.
I can't thank you enough, man. This has been a really incredible episode. I hope, I'm going to push this out as hard as I can to as many people as I can, and hopefully we get a couple ears listening in. So for those of you guys that stayed with us this long, if you're still in this episode, do not hesitate. I'm going to post all of our social media pages. I'll post our information. Do not hesitate if you have any questions. If you have any insight on what we talked about, if you're going through something, and I know for a lot of people, Veterans Day isn't, one of the most fun days. So call us, get a hold of us. If you have any wonderful ideas to go off of what Tom's already doing, if you know somebody that loves racing that would maybe want to help out with what they have going on, don't hesitate. Please get a hold of us. So, Tom, I'm going to leave the floor to you. We still have a good amount of time, so if you want to add anything else, I just want to thank you so much for being on the show. One thing that I do ask my guests, you don't have to know one off the top of your head, but do you live by a quote by chance? Or do you have one that you would like to share with everybody that kind of, that you bring back around every so often?
I can't think of one particular off the top of my head, but I've always been a fan of, I think it's a Bible verse, actually, John 15:13, I think it is, about, you have no greater love for another man than to lay down your life for him. And that's exactly where I try to live from nowadays, Dude, take your shirt off of your back and give the best of yourself to somebody else.
Man, that's powerful.
Right?
I just got a little bit of shivers going. Tom's the man, guys. I need you guys to really follow along with what he's doing once you listen to this, if you guys don't know who he is already. So
yeah, and you guys, the website's getting flashier and better by the day. So warriorsontrack.org. So check that out. And actually on our website, there's a clothing line too, where we're making some pretty cool Warriors on Track apparel. Okay. And if people want to check that out, the proceeds go to Veterans Wellness.
Obviously. Okay, good. So I will be sharing all of that. I'll make sure I have that in the summary of the YouTube video, and then of course I'll be posting on Instagram, Twitter, and a whole lot of other stuff like that. Pretty much from now leading up till Veterans Day, and then probably through the weekend and everything like that. So I am going to test the water. I'm not afraid to share this on the podcast at all, but I am going to test the water with paid advertising for this episode, just because of how important I think this was, for a lot of veterans to possibly hear. So I want to test my knowledge. I am doing this media company thing, so I am going to test my knowledge with trying to get this to some targeted audiences and things of that nature. So it was a really cool episode to have you on, and I can't thank you enough. And I think that's it, man. What do you got? Anything else?
That's about it. I would say for your listeners, one other thing, maybe check out Warriors on Track. It's also got social media going with Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. The YouTube thing is slowly getting there. Okay. But what the cool thing is, keep an eye on our social media December 1st through the 3rd. And the reason I say that is we're bringing 6 veterans this time up to the 25 Hours of Thunder Hill up near Sacramento. That race weekend will be happening the 1st through the 3rd of December. We'll have 6 veterans out there as the pit crew on a prototype endurance race car. Okay. I myself will not be driving this year. I'll just be managing the vets. But
can you get me some sort of pit pass for that?
You bet. If you have no problem driving up about an hour north of Sacramento, we'll be there.
Would I be able to bring the 1-year-old or no?
Absolutely.
Really?
Yeah.
We're there. Yeah, okay, I got to talk to his mama. I will be there for sure. I'm going to be there. Dude, I'm going to promote the hell out of this for you. This is going to be so cool.
Roger. Well, right after Veterans Day, we'll start promoting that race on our social media too. So as soon as we get through this weekend, yeah.
All right, I'll link up with you after we get off of this episode. We'll hash out the details. All right, so everybody, December 1st through the 3rd, make sure you follow these guys and then check back on these pages. And then I'll be sharing everything as well because I'm going to be there. So I'm looking forward to it.
Awesome.
I want to leave everybody with something too. Just one last thing. If you guys did listen to this episode, I know it means you're ready for a change. You're ready for some type of change because you sat through a 25-minute podcast listening to Tom and I, and you wouldn't have had to do that unless you were ready for a change. So tackle it, whatever it is. If you don't know what it is yet, call me. We'll figure it out. Let's get you out of this box. You can go live life and feel whole again. We have your back. We want to see everybody succeed. So I'm going to leave it there. This is episode 12 of the Kyle Hartman Project. I hope you all enjoy your Veterans Day weekend. Make sure to check on a veteran. Even if you're not a veteran, check on a veteran and just let them know you're there. And you guys have a wonderful week. Thank you, guys.